So it's Faye, and I'm doing a vlog on Wicca, the gateway religion. I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes. I did a video on this before, and it was very negative, and I didn't really like it very much, so I'm redoing it. But I decided to write out my blog part of it first before I did this. This is not me saying that Wicca is fluffy or not as good as any other pagan religion. These are my opinions. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. Also, opinions, the thing about opinions is that they can always change. So I want to start off with this question. Is Wicca relevant? Okay. Does it serve a purpose? The answer to both of those questions is yes, absolutely they do. The purpose it has for me may be different than the purpose it might have for you or for someone else. So that's when people get really offended. The Four Queens, a YouTube channel run by a lovely girl named Kelly. I freaking love Kelly. I don't always agree with her, but she definitely gives a very fresh perspective for me. Like, I don't know her personally or anything. I just like her. I like her personality on YouTube, and I'm glad that she's here. But she did a video. I don't remember what the video was called. I'll post a link to it in the description bar below. It's about name calling in the pagan community. Basically, all the other pagans were calling Wiccans fluffy and that they don't really practice magic or whatever. And I agree that people shouldn't judge another person's path, and I'm not. This is really just about what that path did for me. The fact that I did outgrow it and how I outgrew it. So I first want to start off with like how I came to Wicca. I'll probably do a video. I'm sorry, I had some Panera bread earlier and I feel like there's something stuck in the back of my throat now. Sorry, I'm trying to put my notes up so that I can read them. I'm probably gonna do another video of a more in-depth way of how I came to Wicca or whatever, but yeah, my parents raised me Christian. I think I've mentioned that before. Which, due to philosophical disagreements with the majority of everything that I was learning, and some personality mismatches in the group of kids my age, I found myself not wanting to identify that way, that is not who I wanted to be. So for a long time, if I could help it, if I could be everything completely opposite to Christianity, that's what I was going to do. I was going to find the exact opposite of whatever Christianity was and be that, because I didn't want to identify as anything remotely related to Christianity. So for a while I labeled myself as agnostic, which is a person who believes, I'm reading the definition down here. A person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God or of anything beyond material phenomena. A person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God. So, the word God is obviously used very loosely there because I feel like, just a complete kind of side note, I just kind of feel like whenever there is a definition about any kind of spirituality, it's the definition is like 9 times out of 10 how it's different from Christianity, which I think is really weird and really funny. But whatever. So I guess I haven't really outgrown that label, because I still believe 100% that no one knows anything about what's going on. I think that everyone on the planet should be both agnostic and whatever else they believe, because when it really comes down to it, you really don't know. Especially if you've converted from one religion to another, you don't just automatically go from being a Christian to being a Wiccan and going, you know, like one day I'm a Christian and I decide that that's not right, and then the next day I decide I'm a Wiccan and I suddenly believe in the god and the goddess and like the whole wheel of the year and the threefold law and everything. I just believe it. I just believe it in my heart. It's a slow realization that that's what you believe, but belief is not fact. Belief is not knowing anything, and really, by this definition, I don't know, therefore I am not anything. Whereas I say I don't know, however, this is what I believe. And I think that that's a safe place for everyone of every faith or not faith to come from. Because I think that if everyone adopted that mentality, it would be a completely different world that we lived in. We wouldn't be fighting about it all the time. Anyways, that was just a side note. I believe still that I don't know for sure. My choice of belief is a different story. I did study multiple religions, mostly Abraham. I didn't go into studying Islam because I knew 100% that would not go down well with my family. And I don't see, and quite frankly, it was way too close to Christianity for me to feel comfortable. So then I started looking into Judaism and mythology in general, and a lot of the things in the Kabbalah are adopted by the pagan community. Like Lilith is seen as a goddess, and she's an entity in the Kabbalah as Adam's first wife, or the Kabbalah. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I apologize. But as I was studying all these religions, I just became bitter and angry. I started to see way too many like cross references, and so I decided to just swear it all off at one point. I was like, you know what, if I can't see it and I can't feel it, then I don't believe it. So I was atheist for a long time. Well, not a long time, a few months. And really that was just out of spite, from coming from a religious background, and I just didn't want anything to do with religion. So it was a very fearful time for me, just like thinking, okay, well, because of this I know I'm gonna go to hell. Because I was still attending church this whole time. Keep all that in mind. So yeah, learning the histories of other faiths intermingling with Christianity and the bloodshed that those interactions caused in Jesus Christ's name, you know, it tends to make you really bitter, and you just kind of want to swear off all religions, and so that's what I did. And so I started to study my ancestry and my you know, immediate ancestry, and then it got really far back. My mom has a family tree that dates back to Lady Godiva in the like 1100s in England. So, and probably even further than that. That's just the most notable figure in our family tree. So I kind of developed a form of ancestral worship by just studying it and spending hours a day. I still spend hours a day doing research on the many cultures that I come from. And when I say many cultures, I mean many. Like there's I'm part Chinese, I'm part Native American, I'm part Romani, and I'm also very much like I'm largely European, which I guess you could probably see, but I have a lot of other things in there too, which you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at me. But yeah, because of that, especially in studying Celtic and Germanic traditions, I met Charlie. And she was studying Wicca at the time. And in listening to her talk about it, I saw a lot of lines drawn between what I was learning about Germanic and Celtic cultures and with what she was studying. And so it was very, very easy for me to go, okay, yeah, I can see that, because I saw it less as a religion and more as a culture. That's what it is. When it comes down to it, religions are just an adopted culture. I don't think they'd probably define it that way, but that's how I'm defining it. So I started to study Wicca. The fact that in Wicca it is very strongly pulled in the Celtic tradition. There are other traditions as well. I think the Greek and the Egyptian traditions are very, very strong pulls as well. But the Celtic tradition is kind of what it's all based on anyways. But yeah, there's a bit more to the story than that, but you kind of get the picture. It was sort of like coming home when I started to study it. Everything didn't necessarily seem, well, it seemed right. It seemed like, yes, I can totally see how this works in with the Wheel of the Year. It's sort of reconnecting to your roots. Like, you're like, okay, I could totally see how cavemen believe this shit. Because when you live and die by the sun and the moon, then yeah, they turn into your god and your goddess. When you live and die by the cycles of the seasons and whether or not plants are going to germinate and you're going to have berries that next spring, it's really important. So yeah, it makes absolute sense for you to worship the sun and the moon and come up with a rain god and worship the sky and everything that is, and worship the earth and everything that gives and brings to you. It makes sense. Nowadays it could easily be understood by my big sister said this to me once, like worshiping Google. These days people are very, very knowledge drawn. Like, we live and die by what we know. So if you don't have Google then you, or even like a library card, basically. So just knowledge in general. These days we worship knowledge. That is what we worship in culture. So yeah, bowing down to the Google god. That's basically what our ancestors were doing for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years before someone came along and came up with Christianity and all that other stuff that happened after that, and then the Enlightenment and all the things that rolled up along with that. But I realized what it was that I liked. I liked the goddess and the god. I liked the ethics involved. I liked the fact that there was witchcraft, although it was not very pushed and I didn't really practice. I still to this day have not cast a single spell. And I've been practicing. I've been researching for 7 years. But I liked the idea of the tradition. I really liked that it wasn't very organized. The way that it was portrayed to me was that you could get together with like-minded people and create a coven, but that's about as organized as it got. And although then I started to do more research in it, and then it said like the most you could have in a coven is like 13, and then after that everyone else breaks off and creates their own covens, but they're all under the same name. So it's sort of like a motorcycle gang that just went international. I'm watching Sons of Anarchy right now, so it makes a lot more sense to me. Yeah, so the fact that as I started to do more research, it started to look more organized and more religious and more dogmatic to me, the less interested I was. So that's a lot of the reason why I probably never cast a spell until now, is because I'd drop it and then I'd pick it back up, and I'd drop it, and then I'd pick it back up, and then I'd drop it, and then I'd pick it back up. So, and it wasn't that I didn't believe it, it was just that I'd find something that I didn't like, that just didn't set well with me, and most of it was when it got dogmatic, and too close to Christianity is really what it came down to. Or even when it mentioned Christianity too much when like people would get on and on YouTube, let's say, and then they'd bitch about all the Christians and how they're fucking up witches' lives and how they've always fucked up witches' lives and the burning times and blah 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 blah. I was like, dudes, get over it. I mean, that was over 150, it was over a few hundred years ago. No one's really discriminated against to the same degree, and there's a reason that in the witch's pyramid, one of the guiding principles in that is to be silent. So anyway, that's another video. But I just sort of got sick of trying to validate hating on other religions, specifically Christianity, when that's all that other religion is doing to me anyways. It's too hypocritical to me. So that was one of the number one reasons why I no longer identify as Wiccan. I also didn't like that it was like, even though it has a goddess and the god, it's very goddess centric, and I felt like the point of it was to be balanced, and so to have a goddess that's more important than her counterpart, even came first before her counterpart, I couldn't, that just didn't set well with me. And you have to keep in mind that this is a point in time where I really fucking hated Christianity. I didn't want a male god, but I figured if you have a god and a goddess, they should be equal. Just because you come from Christianity and you hate God, and everything he kind of stands for in Christianity, does not mean that you make up for that by leaving out the god almost entirely and adopt the goddess as more important, because that's just, in my opinion, that's just not right. That's like setting it up for, like, let's say that you have children later, and you decide that you want to go along with the tradition of Wicca where you only pass this shit on to your daughters. I personally don't think that that's right. I think that if your son wants to be a witch, he should be able to be a witch. I don't think that women are inherently more valuable or just inherently, like, just supreme beings. I don't see it that way. I see it like men and women, they have their own jobs. As far as biologically, they have their jobs. People like to say, well, without women there wouldn't be children. Well, what would we do without men? You know, I mean, nowadays it wouldn't be that hard because we have enough sperm and sperm banks. If all the men disappeared, we could still procreate. However, it's easy to see why it's really easy to convert from any other religion to Wicca, and from Wicca to any other religion, because it's sort of like the British Empire of the religious world. It sort of colonized every other religion out there. If you want to be a witch and practice Shintoism, then yeah, you can do that. If you want to be into Scientology, it's not a far jump. A lot of witches believe in indigo children or rainbow seeds, star seeds or whatever. It's not a far jump from star seeds to Scientology, in my opinion. It's pretty easy to incorporate just about any other religion and any other ideals or traditions that you come from into Wicca, which is why it's so easily convertible. And that's why I call it a gateway religion. I think that it's not just paganism that it opens you up to. It opens you up to Buddhism. It opens you like directly to Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism. There's not a single fucking thing that Wicca excludes from itself. But in all that acceptance, there's a lot of negativity involved as far as people who I think the real issue that it really comes down to is people who come possibly from a hereditary pagan practice to they sort of take umbrage with what Wicca has to offer, because it other pagan religions like or pagan traditions, they're very exclusive, and Wicca is very inclusive, and so they kind of see it as you're just too soft, and I can see that. I definitely do. I see that it's sort of like it just combines itself with a million other religions, creating sort of bastard religions. And so you can be both an atheist and a witch, or you can, like, it's just, you can be just about anything. But I like the witchcraft. I like the moon traditions. Everything that I felt was very primal and like at its base. That's what I think is really good about Wicca, is that I think that it's really more of a basis for every other pagan religion. And this is where I get upset with people who have practiced, let's say, Wicca for like 20 years. I'm like, really? You practiced one religion for 20 years? You didn't branch out at all? You didn't like find something? You didn't come across something in Wicca that reminded you of another religion that you were like, okay, well, I agree with this. Why don't I go and do some more research and see what else I want to incorporate? That's where I start to get iffy. Like with me, just an example, Wiccans use tea leaves, palmistry, tarot cards, they scry. All of those fortune-telling things have roots in gypsy magic. So if you went up and you found a book on gypsy magic, you felt like it more strongly resonated with you, and that gypsy magic, it doesn't really have a goddess or a god, and that you decided, oh, well, you know what, I feel like that more aligns with me. I don't really feel like deity needs to be a part of this. I think that all I need is myself. Then suddenly you're not a Wiccan anymore. You're a gypsy witch. Basically what I'm saying is if you like something about Wicca, it probably had its ties in something else before, because Wicca is very new. It's probably one of the newest religions on the face of the planet. It's only a few decades old. It's like, I think it might be 60 years old now. If you like that it's new, then that's great. If you're like me and you see it for what it is, the fact that it's just a new way of looking at older religions, then you see that it's not really something that you live in. It's the way, like, if we always call it our path, right? Our spiritual path. If religions are little houses on that path, or like a cave or a grove or whatever, if that's what they are along this path, then going from this house in Wicca and then going to this waterfall, or this house in Christianity and going to this waterfall in Wicca and just staying there and living there forever, then you're not still learning. You're at that point, you're just doing. And I don't think that it's possible for anyone to become proficient at anything, or to become proficient at spirituality at all, because I don't think we're meant to stay in one place. I don't think that most people are meant to stay in one place. I think that some people in some lifetimes are meant to become proficient in one aspect so that they can teach other people, so that those people can take that, say, okay, thank you for the water from your waterfall. I'm going to take that, I'm going to keep it with me, and I'm going to, you know, just continue to drink from it until I get to a new waterfall, or whatever. I don't know if my analogies are making sense to you guys, but this is just kind of how I feel about it. So, for some people, I think that, yeah, it's okay for you to sit there and say, I'm practicing Wiccan, and I've practiced for 25 years, and, you know, that's okay. Because that might be your calling, to be proficient in something, to be, like, the keeper of the waterfall. And then pass on your wisdom to other people so that they can take that, use it in their own practice until they decide that that's just not right for them anymore because they've progressed on to something else. But then there are people who adopt it without really knowing much about it anyways, just because they really like the fact that they kind of like the sensationalism of saying I'm a witch, because it's very controversial. You get a lot of attention by saying that, and I think that that's the number one reason why I have a hard time taking teenagers who say that they're Wiccan seriously. I know that people looked at me that way when I was a teenager and I identified as Wiccan, because I didn't not identify as Wiccan until a couple years ago. And a couple of years ago, I was like 19. So I was still a teenager, but whatever. So, but what I'm saying is like, there are some people who don't really learn that much about it. They find maybe one or two books, read them, take the rituals and spells from those books and use those for the rest of their life, just because they like the sensationalism of it. And they say that I don't think that that at all is living an honest life with you, and I think that that's not a life worth living. I think that if you feel like what I just said is offensive, that might be where you are, and I really encourage you to evaluate that. Maybe buy a few more books, do a little bit more research, and maybe get a world religions book. Because even if you don't want to practice Shintoism or Buddhism, you might like something in it, and you can incorporate it and make your practice your own. And then it's yours, and no one can take it away from you, and you feel so much more at home. It's like the comfy sweater that you don't want to take off because it's so cozy. And then at that point, see, the Four Queens, she described the word witch as like a coat that she loved how it felt, but she shrugs it off, and then she sees it, I love the way that looked on me, I love the way that made me feel, and she puts it back on, and then she sort of shrugs it back off. I don't think that spirituality is like that. I think it's more like a sweater that you just wear all the time. You might get holes here or there, and this hole you sew up with Shintoism, or this hole you sew up with Buddhism, and so you add those things to your practice to continue to learn, and then at the end of your life you can live with no regrets. And that's just how I feel about it. I don't think that everyone is this way. Like I said, I believe that there are certain people that are out there that are just meant to be teachers. They're meant to be proficient in one thing, to be the keeper of the waterfall or whatever. But in the long run, for people whose souls aren't on that particular path in this lifetime, I think that it's very important not to get stagnant, because you don't want to waste this lifetime. I mean, you may have a few thousand more to come, but I don't think that you should use that as an excuse to just stay where you're comfortable. I think it's really good to be brave and just push past your boundaries and just learn to defend what you believe. And I think that's really all I have to say about the subject. I couldn't, I can't expand upon it any more than I already have. I probably can't offend any more people than I've already offended. And I'm not in any way saying that Wicca is fluffy. Like I said, I agree that people shouldn't judge other people's paths. You shouldn't compare your path to someone else. But this is my channel, and this is just really, this is more about why I don't identify as Wicca, more than it's about why Wicca is wrong. Because Wicca is not wrong, in my opinion. It's just that it's the beginning. I feel like for people who have not grown up in a particular tradition, or they haven't been taught a particular tradition, I think that Wicca is a good place to start. I think that it's the beginning of a long, long, long journey. So I guess that's really all I have to say about it. Thanks for listening to my rambling about it. I'm sorry if I offended you. Let's have a educated debate. An educated and unbiased debate below. And if we don't agree, then let's just agree to disagree, and let it go. But if you have a very good point that you'd like to make, it could definitely sway my opinion. I don't think I'll change my opinion as far as how it refers to me. However, I might change my tune as far as the way I view other people who identify as Wiccan. So do your fellow Wiccans a favor. Change my mind. But thanks for watching. Bye.